Jury deliberations have begun in the trial of 18-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Rittenhouse faces a range of charges for fatally shooting two people during protests last August and wounding a third. The case involves the flashpoints of gun rights, racial justice demonstrations, and law and order. So let's head now to Kenosha for some on-the-ground reporting with Bloomberg News' Skylar Woodhouse. Skylar, so good to see you. Can you just tell us what the atmosphere was like overall when you were around the courthouse in downtown? Was it thick with tension?
Yes, so when you're at the courthouse and you're on the stairs leading up to the courthouse, there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of people on both sides, some supporting Kyle, some who are not. And, there's a lot of tension among the two sides of the story. But if you drive a few minutes away from the courthouse, it's very calm. There's a different side of Kenosha, but given the trial and how everything is centered at the courthouse, there is truly a tension surrounding the courthouse. But it's kind of strange how if you go just a few minutes down the road, it's almost like it's very quiet and calm, and you might not even know that there's this trial happening.
Yeah, like almost a different world entirely. Now, exactly. We know that two men were killed and a third was injured. Just recount for us again the facts of the case here. What is Kyle Rittenhouse accused of doing?
Yes, so what we know is, that he drove across state lines after when Jacob Blake was shot by a police officer. Jacob Blake was an unarmed black man. So Kyle drove across state lines from Illinois with his mom, and he came to the protests that were happening here in Kenosha. He had a weapon, and he was, when he shot the three men, he said that he was acting in self-defense. So that's what we know. And the jury, the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, they've been going at it, and now they're in jury deliberations, and just to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, and we just detailed the 5 individual felony charges that Kyle Rittenhouse faces. The most severe one is first-degree intentional homicide, which in some states would be equivalent to first-degree murder. It's really among the most serious charges, and if convicted, he could face life in prison. What's interesting is that earlier this week, the judge dismissed a 6th charge against Rittenhouse, which was possessing a dangerous weapon as a minor, because he was 17 when the shootings happened, and he's now 18 years old, so he's a legal adult now. Wisconsin is an open carry state, so he was not doing anything wrong by being armed in the state. I'm just curious, when you were at the courthouse with all the tension there, were there people talking about carrying guns near the courthouse? Did you see anyone carrying weapons?
Aside from the officers who were here at the courthouse, I personally have not seen anyone carrying a weapon. I haven't really heard any language where some of the protesters might be saying, oh, they're gonna bring a weapon, or that someone they know is going to bring a weapon. I haven't heard anything of that nature. There's been more just a really rowdy sense of dialect among the two sides of the story, where they're verbally really going after one another.
Yeah, almost like they're having the argument with each other in a trial, but not really, because they're outside. This has been playing out for 2 weeks now, and it seems to really come down to whether he was acting in self-defense or not, or whether he was committing serious crimes. What are people saying specifically? I know that you went around and talked with a lot of different people to gather their thoughts. What did you learn?
Yeah, so I've spoken to a ton of people. Some people, they're really passionate and they firmly believe, that Kyle was acting in self-defense. Others feel that was not the case. So take a listen to some of the people that I spoke with.
You were here when everything first happened, so what inspired you to come back?
To continue to show support for Kyle. I was in that situation, and he acted rightfully. He was in self-defense, so I'm standing in support of him.
And what has the energy been like today?
Well, we got people here who has no real purpose of being here, but starting a problem. A guy over there with a dog just came with a bullhorn and screamed in my ear in front of the police officers. Security right there standing by, waiting to arrest me.
And what would you like to see happen?
I would like for Kyle not to have any charges because he acted in self-defense. He did nothing wrong. The whole community of Kenosha was in despair that night. There's irreplaceable damage that occurred. Rioters, not peaceful protesters.
How do you think everything is going? What do you think is going to happen?
It's iffy right now. We don't know what the verdict is going to be. If the verdict is going to be not guilty or a mistrial or anything in that type of nature, we pray for the community not to do no harm to their community of Kenosha.
So as you just heard there, there was a lot of background noise happening as I was speaking to those people. And, a lot of people are just there to make their opinion known, to make where they stand known. So, and they're using their voice for whatever side that they're on, and they're just trying to really just make sure that some other person hears their side of the story or hears their opinion. And people that I've spoken with, so yesterday on Monday, I've been here since Sunday night, and on Monday, there weren't as many people here. There's still not a large group of people here like we have seen in past protests, but there's a few more people here today, and the security presence is, the officers have come more outside of the courthouse. Yesterday they kind of remained more inside, but they've taken more of an outside approach today. I think with just the few more people, and today people are definitely more verbal than they were yesterday. So we'll see how things go for the rest of the week until we get that decision.
Yeah, which makes sense given that the jury deliberations began today, and it's still not clear how long this process will take before a verdict does come along. The shooting would not have happened if it were not for Kyle Rittenhouse and other people volunteering to come over and protect local businesses during the protests in Kenosha. I'm just wondering, of the people that you saw, there was someone who said that they were there to support Kyle Rittenhouse. Were there any volunteers who said that they were there actively to protect small businesses in case anything does happen?
I have not spoken with anyone who has said that they've been there to, say like, I'm here to protect the people of Kenosha, protect small businesses. I think as the week goes on, there might be someone who comes and, who says that. I think we are starting to see more people kind of trickle in into Kenosha as the week goes on. One thing that I found interesting is, people are taking off of work to come here and be involved in the protests. So whichever side they're on. So, we might see that going forward, but it's just a matter of wait and see.
Yeah. What also is really interesting to me is just how much everyone is talking about this trial. You mentioned that it feels like a different world a couple blocks away from the courthouse, but here in New York, it's of course a big topic of conversation. I was looking on Twitter, and Bill Ackman, the hedge fund billionaire, has been tweeting about this. He was tweeting that he was watching the trial and he felt that Kyle Rittenhouse was telling the truth and acting in self-defense. His main point, though, was that Rittenhouse's life is at risk. Justice demands a fair trial, he says. Society would benefit greatly if politics did not enter the courtroom and convict innocent people. So he's trying to separate the trial from political tribes, political bias. Are you hearing a lot of people talk about conservatives versus progressives when you talk to them near the courthouse?
Yeah, so, there are some signs that are like Black Lives Matter. There is some sort of rhetoric around that. But I think what people here are trying to also say is that this isn't necessarily about Black Lives Matter. It's more so about, a white man who was armed get away with what he did. And if it was a Black man in his situation, there might be a different story. So I think that's also kind of the story that some of these protesters are trying to say to the other side, is that conversation right there, which is, I think, where a lot of the discussion comes in among the two sides of the story when it gets kind of down to that racial component.
Gotcha. And one of the folks you talked to referenced how there are riots, and you haven't seen that happen yet. So far, things have been pretty peaceful, but I just wonder, do we know how the authorities in Kenosha are preparing for when there is a verdict, if there is any kind of unrest? I mean, do they have people standing by?
Yes, so there's definitely there is a security presence. You'll see some, patrol cars around. There's signs saying you can't park here, don't park there. What we do know is, the National Guard is on standby. If things were to escalate and really take a different turn, they might be called in. So that's really all we have from a security standpoint. And again, it's just really, I think more decisions will be made as time goes on and if the crowd grows.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, more people are taking time off. They're making their way over to Kenosha. Does anyone have a sense, or is anyone speculating on when a verdict would come through? Based on previous trials, does anyone have a sense of how long this will go on for?
I think it's kind of like everyone knows it could happen sooner than later. It could happen, whenever. It could happen right now, for all I know. I think there's just kind of this wait and see situation where people are just kind of waiting for that notification that, they've reached a decision and which we're really just going to wait and see what happens.
All right, Bloomberg News' Skylar Woodhouse, thank you so much. Skylar is reporting on the ground in Kenosha, Wisconsin. She's been there for the last couple of days, and we'll be checking in with her for more updates.